Of course. Here's section 1 of your script, minimum 500 words, written in a first-person narrative, faceless video style, directly engaging and emotionally layered, without unnecessary filler. I used to think love was supposed to feel like safety, like something calm and predictable. That's what I had with my husband. A quiet home, morning routines,
Chores split evenly.
even our arguments were measured, polite. But somewhere along the line, things stopped feeling alive. He was kind, but distant, always busy, always distracted. We shared a bed, but not warmth. Conversations became mechanical. Eye contact faded. I told myself it was normal, that every marriage dulls with time. Then he started coming around more often, my husband's brother. Not in any inappropriate way, just casual. Family. He helped with small things, fixed a door hinge, carried in groceries. He made jokes, stayed for dinner. At first, I didn't notice much. He had a lightness to him, this relaxed way of existing that felt unfamiliar in our house. He looked at me when I spoke. Actually looked. Not past me, not through me. One evening, I was laughing at something he said, something stupid, really, and I realized how long it had been since I laughed like that. I caught myself watching him when he wasn't speaking. The way he leaned back in the chair, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. I shook it off. He was family. And I was married. That should have been enough. But it wasn't just about him. It was about the way I started to feel when he was near. The way I straightened my hair in the mirror when I knew he'd be stopping by. The way I picked my outfit with more care, even though I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't trying to impress him. At least, that's what I told myself. My husband never noticed. He was always buried in emails or taking calls. I'd mention something for my day, and he'd nod, barely listening. One night, I made his favorite dinner. He didn't say a word about it, just ate in silence, scrolled through his phone, and went to bed early. I stared at the empty seat across the table, the one his brother usually filled during visits, and I hated how much I missed his voice. There was a moment, I remember it clearly. His brother and I were cleaning up after dinner. My husband had already retreated to the den. We were shoulder to shoulder, reaching for the same plate. Our hands brushed. It wasn't even a touch, really just skin against skin. But it felt electric. I pulled my hand back too quickly. He noticed. He smiled, not in a smug way, but like he knew something I hadn't figured out yet. That night, lying in bed next to my husband's sleeping body, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what it meant that I was thinking about his brother's smile. Not obsessively, just curiously. I told myself boundaries were still in place. Nothing had happened, but something had definitely started. And once something starts, even quietly, it's never easy to unstart. Of course. Here is section 2 of your script, written in the same direct, emotionally intimate style, with a minimum of 500 words and no repetition from the previous section. It was a Saturday, the kind of afternoon that feels endless. Sunlight through the windows, soft music playing, dishes clinking faintly in the sink. My husband had disappeared into his office, headphones on, completely absorbed in whatever task he told himself was more important. I was used to it by then. I didn't feel hurt anymore, just invisible. His brother was over helping with something around the house. I can't remember what exactly, something about the garden hose or a stuck drawer. He stayed for coffee. We talked mostly light things. I laughed too easily. He noticed. That amused look on his face again. Not cocky. Just knowing. It irritated me how much I wanted to keep him looking at me like that. He reached across the counter for the sugar bowl, and his hand brushed mine. This time, neither of us pulled away. It was only a second, maybe two. But I felt it all through me. His fingers grazed the side of my palm, slow, like he meant it. My heart picked up. I didn't say a word. I just turned away and busied myself with stirring my coffee that didn't need stirring. My stomach was warm, not from the drink, but from the weight of that tiny, deliberate touch. Later, as I walked him to the door, he turned to say goodbye. No hug, no words loaded with double meaning. But his eyes held longer than necessary. They dropped, just slightly, toward my waist. And then his hand lifted. Gentle, deliberate, he placed it against my stomach. Not possessive. Not urgent. Just resting there, like it belonged. Like he knew it was the exact place to touch me and not scare me off. I didn't move.
I didn't step back.
I didn't laugh it off or look around to make sure no one saw. I just stood there, frozen in something that wasn't fear. It was awareness. Of him. Of myself. Of the space between us that no longer felt innocent. His hand stayed for only a moment. Long enough to be remembered. Then it dropped. He said nothing. Just gave me a quiet look that said everything. I watched him walk away, close the door behind him, and I stood there for a full minute, hand over the spot he touched. I didn't feel guilty. That's the part that still unsettles me. I felt awake. Like my body had been asleep for so long, and someone had finally pressed the right switch. My husband came into the room a few minutes later, asked if his brother had left already. I nodded, smiled, and made some excuse about needing to lie down. He didn't ask why. That night, I stared at the ceiling again. Same bed. Same silence. But now, something had shifted. I couldn't stop replaying that moment at the door, the warmth of his hand, the way I didn't flinch. Not once did I ask myself why it happened. The only question in my mind was, what happens next? Of course. Here is section 3 of your script, continuing the story with precision, emotional depth, and no repetition. The writing stays focused, intimate, and to the point as requested. I started noticing how often I checked my phone. Not for messages from my husband. Those had become rare, functional. But for his brother. A missed call, a short text, a photo he knew would make me laugh. It was never romantic. Not directly. He stayed just on the edge of appropriate, always careful. But the way he chose his words, the timing, the late-night replies, it all said what we weren't willing to say. He asked how I was doing. Not casually, but like he really meant it. Like he remembered the things I said weeks earlier. He'd send something simple. Hope you're okay today. That was all. But no one had asked me that in a long time. Not like that. Not with real intent behind it. We started talking more. About everything and nothing. Music, childhood stories, the shows we watched when we couldn't sleep. He told me things I knew he hadn't shared with others. I found myself waiting for the little buzz of a message after dark. I told myself it was harmless. Just connection. Just someone seeing me, hearing me, asking me questions my husband stopped asking years ago. The distance between me and my husband kept growing. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did and chose to ignore it. He'd leave early, come home late, barely kiss me hello. One night, I sat on the couch next to him and tried to talk about something small, something silly. He nodded, eyes on his screen. He didn't laugh.
Didn't even look at me.
I said his name, softly. He just said, yeah, without lifting his eyes. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't waiting to be noticed anymore. I was done waiting. The next day, his brother asked if I wanted to grab a coffee. No big deal. We'd both be in town, he said. Just a break from the routine. I said yes too quickly. I got dressed too carefully. I wore lipstick I hadn't touched in months. We didn't talk about my husband. Not once. We just talked about us, about everything that didn't feel heavy. I laughed again. Not the polite kind. The kind that made me forget, even for a second, where I was. When we said goodbye, he didn't touch me, didn't lean in. But the silence between us said what neither of us would speak out loud. There was a pull now, one that neither of us denied. It was in the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. In the way I leaned a little too close when we spoke. That night, I told myself it was emotional, not physical, a way of coping. But deep down, I knew I was lying. It had already crossed a line, one I couldn't uncross. I wasn't just craving attention. I was craving him. Not his hands. Not yet. But his voice. His presence. His ability to make me feel like I still mattered. Like I still had something in me worth reaching for. Of course. Here is section 4 of your script, the final part of the story, written with the same emotionally precise tone, no repetition, and meeting the 500-word minimum requirement. It was late. The kind of night where the air feels heavy and quiet. My husband was out of town for work. He didn't call before bed. He rarely did anymore. I was cleaning up after dinner when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I didn't hesitate. Somehow, I already knew it was him. He said he'd left something behind, keys, maybe, or a charger. I don't remember, and it didn't matter. I let him in. We didn't talk much. Just small words to fill the space. The house felt warmer with him in it. Or maybe it was just me. I made tea we didn't drink. We stood too close in the kitchen, neither of us stepping back. He looked at me differently now. Not tentative. Not unsure. Like he knew I wouldn't stop him. I felt that look more than I saw it. And I knew. This was the moment where things wouldn't be reversible. He reached out slowly, fingers brushing the same spot on my stomach where he'd touched me before. This time, he didn't stop there. His hand rested there again, gently, like he was waiting for permission. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just placed my hand on top of his. We stood like that for a long time. No words. No explanations. Just silence that carried too much. I could hear my own breathing, feel the blood moving in my veins, like my body had been waiting for this without telling me. I wasn't thinking about right or wrong. I wasn't thinking about my husband. I was thinking about how it felt to be wanted, not out of duty, not out of habit, but really, actively, fully wanted. I hadn't felt that in so long it hurt. He leaned in, slow, respectful, hesitant, like he would stop if I so much as blinked the wrong way. I didn't stop him. I leaned in too. Our lips didn't touch.
Not yet.
We were close, but it wasn't about that.
Not then.
It was the weight of everything unsaid, hanging between us like something fragile, but too real to ignore. I should have said something. I should have stepped back. But I didn't. Because the truth is, I didn't want to be saved. Not from him. Not from this. I wanted to feel. I wanted to be chosen. And in that moment he did. He chose me. Nothing more happened that night. No clothes were removed. No vows were shattered in the traditional sense. But the boundary, the final line, had been crossed. And it was more intimate than anything physical. It was knowing, without question, that I had let it happen. That I welcomed it. After he left, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I sat in the quiet and ran my fingers over the place he touched. My body remembered. My heart was loud. I had betrayed nothing but silence, and yet it felt louder than anything else I'd ever done. And the worst part? I knew I'd do it again.